Welcome to Facebook Live with BCP Council. My name is Mellor and I'm the leader of BCP Council. I'm joined today by Councillor Nicola Greene, who's our portfolio holder for COVID Resilient Schools and Skills. This is one of our regular sessions, and today we've decided it would be a really useful time to have a COVID special, which is why Nicola's joining me today. I'd just like to start by apologising for the technical issues on last week's Facebook Live session, and we've now hopefully resolved the issues around the audio quality, so I hope people can hear us. What we are going to be doing now is using these sessions every 2 weeks from here, so we look forward to engaging with you and answering lots of your questions with multiple members of our cabinet. So I look forward to questions coming in on the message bar. Please by all means get those going now. Nicola, would you like to start with an update where we are in terms of COVID? Thank you.
Yes, certainly, and I'll be as brief as I can because clearly that your questions are the more important things. And while it was a bit of a nuisance last week, it's quite timely actually that it's pushed us to be here today. So just a very quick update on the public health data around local infections. Just as we were for the past couple of weeks actually, we're broadly tracking about 10% below the national figure in BCP, with a rate just over 200 compared with about the 225 figure nationally. Obviously there's a lot of variation in there, but broadly we're seeing the same trends of mostly younger people who are being infected, but clearly as younger people get infected, so do the rest of the community through family transmission and so on. And I did just want to refer to the one question that I managed to get down from last week, and Catherine Stacey, I don't know if you're here today, but you did raise a question about the hospital's capacity. And I think it's really important to remember that one reason that the new measures have come in is to make sure that the hospitals continue to have capacity. Clearly we're working with University Hospitals Dorset, and they're keeping a very close eye on what's happening within their various hospitals. There are more cases who need hospitalisation, and amongst those clearly there are some of those people who need oxygen and ventilation. And as we found previously, those figures track quite some time behind the infection rate. But we're certainly hoping that if we manage to reduce our infection rates, then obviously fewer people in the longer term will go into hospital. And just a very quick update on the differences since last time, which is that the national picture has changed, as you'll all be aware, over the weekend. This isn't a full lockdown, which is what we were seeing before. So many services are still open, but we're required to stay at home really unless it's for work, for education, for exercise, and that can be outside, for medical reasons, for shopping for essentials, and providing care and support to people who haven't got their own support networks. So it's a very brief whistle-stop of where we are, and we'll get on to your questions.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. First question we've got relating to COVID is from Brett Townsend, asking about grants and being available for self-employed people, businesses struggling. So yeah, Brett, it's a national piece, but yes, the self-employed scheme is extending. So that's hopefully good news, and I believe that people are able to access that quicker now than historically. There's a mid-month point in that. In terms of businesses, yes, very much. So we've had a couple of things announced nationally. One is of the rateable value of properties. So if you're forced to close, you can get a grant up to £3,000, and the cut-offs for different points of that are it's under 15k, between 15 and 51k, and over 51k. So if your rateable value is over 51k, you get the full 3,000. And we've also had £1.1 billion announced from the government, which equates to £20 a head of population. So that will be in a discretionary scheme. It's not entirely discretionary, but there is some discretion for us as a local authority to do that. So we look forward to bringing forward that discretionary scheme as well. Thank you, Brett.
And to follow on, Caroline Dawn, your question about all NHS Services. I'm sorry, I can't see if there's a question mark at the end of that. But the point that you raised, which I think is really relevant, is that there is a big change in the government messaging this time, and we'd certainly echo that we don't want people not to access other NHS services. If you're unwell, contact your doctors. Don't miss appointments. Don't not get your prescriptions. It's really a focus of the hospitals, actually going back to a previous answer, that they want to continue as many of the treatments as have been planned as they possibly can, and that's absolutely true in general practice. So please do make sure, if you've got some tests scheduled, unless you're told otherwise, to make sure that you attend those.
Brilliant, thank you, Nicola. So I've got a question from, I'll do some a little bit quicker, from Kirsty around dentists. Are dentists staying open? Yes, health is staying open, so dentists are. Had a question from Sue regarding travel, and are we allowed to travel out of county? And I think, Sue, your actual question was in relation to Wiltshire. No, for work, people are allowed to travel. And that's acceptable, but for any other reason it's very much limited. So if it's the same as travelling anywhere else. If you're travelling for childcare or to volunteer or anything vulnerable, but other than that, we're not allowed to travel anywhere, whether that's Wiltshire, out of county or not.
Thank you. Following on. Jagdit, in response to your comment, yes, the household waste and recycling centres will be staying open. I'm not quite sure what the second part is, but previously there was an issue, wasn't there, that it wasn't very well communicated in the former lockdown. As far as we're aware at the moment, they will continue on this occasion.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. And Richie's asked a question about beach huts and why we can justify keeping them open when second homes aren't allowed. Just to be really clear, the beach huts that we're allowed to sleep in overnight, the lodges, they are closed. So nobody's allowed to stay in those, because you're not allowed to stay away from your home other than for work. We're keeping our beach huts open because we think it's really important, actually, that people get outside and have some fresh air. There's massive learnings from the last lockdown in terms of mental health, and if people can use a beach hut safely, with 2 metre distance, and you're likely to be able to, then it's a really good use of an ability for somebody to get out and have fresh air. So we wanted to keep beach huts, car parks, toilets open so people can access our open spaces, which is really, really important as we're heading into a winter lockdown.
Lucy Allen, you've asked a question about boarding schools, and this came up yesterday. I haven't got the complete answer for it, but I'd be very grateful if you'd like to send me an email. I will have that answer later on today. And just so everybody's aware, there's a question about some children who attend boarding schools, and that includes some special schools as well, who live not too far, who would be allowed to attend school as day pupils. But there's a question around whether they'll be allowed home, weekly boarders that is, at the weekend. So we're looking for some further guidance. Like a lot of this, it's a very important issue for a family, but it's a relatively small number of people who are affected, and therefore the guidance hasn't always come out all in one. So we are chasing up on that. And as I say, Lucy, if you could drop me an email, I will send you the response that I'm sending on to some other parents who've inquired about that, hopefully later on today.
Jan's asked a question, Jan Hawksworth's asked a question around can my partner still attend people's homes for work? And the answer to that is yes. The guidance has been very clear. People are allowed to, tradespeople are allowed to go into other homes to fulfil their normal duties. Childcare is allowed as well, so people are allowed in other people's homes if there is a professional purpose to do that.
Yeah, and I think I'd just add to that the council has some ongoing work in some of its own properties, maintenance, refitting and so on, and obviously those jobs which have been commenced will be seen through to completion, provided the householder is happy. And if you have concerns about that, or if you feel vulnerable in any way, then obviously you need to talk that through with your contractor.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you. And we've got a question from Cornelia, who has asked, she works in a unit on her own. Can she still go and use that unit to work in? I think the answer to that is if you're able to work from home, we all should, and that's what we would recommend. So that is a government guidance. It's up to you to decide whether you can work from home. Obviously, your minimised risk in terms of just being the only person in a unit will be for you to decide. I've also got a question from Brenda, who has asked you can people who are single living alone have another person come into their house and stay over? The advice on this is bubbles are still allowed in terms of, so if you're a single person, you're allowed to bubble with another person. For instance, my mum lives alone, and she's allowed to come and we're bubbled with her, so she would be technically allowed to stay. So yes, as long as it's your bubble, you can't change your bubble. So you need to think who that should be. It's all about respecting the fact that we need to minimise the amount of people that we're seeing and interacting with. Thank you. Okay, let's look for some more questions. So Kirsty Hayward's asked a question about supply teachers being put on furlough as more schools close bubbles. Those decisions are very much for the school, so there's no blanket decision there, Kirsty. The furlough scheme has been extended for the rest of the month, which has been really positive news for a lot of business owners. And it's not just business owners, schools as well can use them. So there is a potential to be furloughed, but those decisions are for the schools themselves.
And if I can pick on Charlotte's question, I apologise if I'm appearing. My range of vision isn't always perfect. So Charlotte, thank you for your short question, which is around will day services remain open? And some of those will, but please check the particular service. There is some quite current stuff on the council website. So any specifics check, but in principle there is a big difference from what was allowed before to what is allowed now. And that's around some of the support groups which have been meeting, particularly around people's mental health. Groups of around up to 15 are still able to go on if they've been operating before, but it will be bespoke to the particular group of service users. But for those people, it is absolutely essential that you continue to access those groups. They're there for you for support, and they continue to be there for support.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. Jackie's asked a really interesting question, which I haven't got the full answer to, but maybe we can find out for you, Jackie. You're the main carer for your grandchildren, as a lot of people will be, and the question is, can they still come to you to allow you to care for them? I'm very clear on the fact that the government has said that people are allowed into other people's homes for childcare. So, technically, if you were going to their home, you're very much allowed to do that. I'm not sure of the answer in terms of whether the children are allowed to travel, but we can find out. We will find out for you, quickly and respond to you, there, Jackie.
Kerry, in response to your question, I think it will depend on the circumstances as to whether you'll continue to receive the visit that you're expecting. But just to give you some clarity, while the guidance is to stay at home and work from home wherever possible, there are clearly a large number of people in the workforce who need to travel for their work, and we were discussing only this morning that some people in children's services will absolutely fit that, and therefore there will be sensible dispensations for them to make visits that they need to.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we've had a question from Janjit in response to the bubbling point. Can a single person only bubble with another single person? No, my understanding is that a single person can bubble with a family. So that's right. Great, thank you. Also had a question from Sonia Sonia Harris again about tradespeople. So we did cover this slightly earlier, and I know people are coming to this over time. So just to be really clear, tradespeople are allowed to not just finish the work they're doing, but they're allowed to work in people's homes for the whole period. So Sonia, hopefully that's helpful.
And I hope you get the rest of the kitchen finished. I'm wondering about which half you've got done so far.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so Julie Ward's asked a question, how do I manage once furlough is over and it's a whole month of not earning before a universal credit payment? Judy, that's a good question. The government has been extensive in its ability to extend furlough, so hopefully that's of some benefit. We can, we've also got for self-employed people. There's, the scheme has been extended as well, so there is a range of services. If anybody's in any particular difficulty, then we welcome hearing from them, and we can take your case up for you. Thank you.
To pick up on Martin Pope's question about a ward counsellor being clinically vulnerable, it would be inappropriate to go into personal circumstances, but you can be clinically vulnerable and still able to work, and a lot of counsellor work is done remotely and done through email, and they may still be able to help you. So my point is, please don't make a presumption that just because somebody you think is on that list, that they won't be able to be your first port of call. Clearly some people may well struggle, and if you've had that response, I would suggest that in the first instance you contact one of their colleagues. We are at least 2 members in every ward across BCP, so if all else fails, then try the ward colleague, and if not, try a colleague in a neighbouring ward. But I think, as far as I'm aware, I think you should probably get a response from somebody within the ward in the first instance.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the great things about this, if there's anything been positive about this whole thing, is the fact we are able to use more digital, stuff. So for instance, hopefully we can all keep interacting and providing sort of more business as usual stuff. Steve's asked a question about the Creekmore test site and whether it is earmarked for a lorry park post Brexit. Steve, technically, you're absolutely right. That is the site that has been earmarked for us as a potential overspill Brexit lorry park. While the Creekmore testing centre is there, it obviously can't be used for that. So we're looking into other places we could earmark for that as we speak. So the Creekmore test site is very likely to stay where it is. Just on testing in general, I've been on a lot of calls with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, which is our effectively local government ministry. And one thing they've been very clear to us from Sunday and again reiterated yesterday is that one of the main things we're going to need to do is have a really mass testing programme available to us as we come out of this. Some people might have seen that Liverpool are going to be testing everybody in Liverpool, or offering a test for everybody in Liverpool, and that's a type of more localised testing, quicker answers, more mobile units to do it, where I think we'll end up, and that's certainly the ambition. We've government have been looking for local authorities to ask to be pilots for more localised mass testing, and we put our hand up and asked to do that. So that more mass, quick turnaround testing is going to be very important. Samantha also asked a question, excuse me, around if schools close, will we put more support into SEND, special education needs. So I think the main thing to reiterate here is that the government have been absolutely it would be a government decision first of all, and the government have been absolutely categorically clear that their priority, alongside everybody's health and flattening of the curve again and keeping NHS able to cope, is to keep children in schools. And that's that is because they believe that the long-term life chances of children are more affected by not being in school. So I appreciate your question was more specifically about SEND, but what I don't want to cause any confusion and say effectively anything other than schools will remain open. As much as we're all aware now, because it's been a real priority to get children into schools. It's a safer place for them, particularly vulnerable children. It's we need to make sure those children are in schools, and we're committed to that as well.
Yeah, just follow up on that there's a clear welfare benefit for children being in schools, being with their friends, building those normal relationships and having the normal opportunities to grow and mature, as well as the very crucial parts of their formal education. And I think it was just before Sam's question, I wanted to go back to a comment from Jonathan about shielding, and if you are shielding, which is the term that we were using earlier in the year, but not so much now because the programme is different, but about keeping your children at home. I would just make the point that there is a very strong reason for why you should be keeping your children at school, but that of course there are personal circumstances that need to be taken into account. Some parents do electively home educate their children outside of this unusual time, so there is that option open to you. But I would strongly recommend that you speak in the first instance with your child's school and see what their curriculum offer is, and just consider the whole picture. You are the best person to make the decisions for your children, but just make sure you take all the advice that there is and consider all the options, because I think you'll find there's quite a lot of parts of that decision that need to be taken.
Yeah, thank you, Nicola. Jamie has asked a question: are grandparents allowed to see their children in or outside? And thank you for the question, Jamie. So, technically, childcare is allowed. So if you are delivering childcare for, in the home of the child, that is allowed. But the whole point of the lockdown is to reduce contact. So people aren't allowed to be in other people's homes in normal business. So your home is your bubble, and you're not allowed to go and socially be in somebody else's home. It's incredibly tough and it's incredibly difficult. But the point is, that there is a reason for doing this, and we need to make sure our NHS is safe and able to deal with the problems that we're facing. So we're asking people. The government's been quite clear, please do not, mix socially, please really take some responsibility about that. Our cases were rising quite significantly. We were in the lowest tier, but we were rising quite quickly. So I think we've just got to be really aware and all take some responsibility that this is still a big problem. I know we've done this before, but it's something we've really got to come together as a nation now and respect. So Jamie, sorry for a long answer, but in effect, yes, if you're providing childcare, but no in terms of any social normal social interaction.
Joanna, your question about if you're told to self-isolate, when's the best time to organise a test? The time to organise a test is if you display symptoms. The point of isolating is to make sure that you don't pass on anything asymptomatically. But it is entirely possible, of course, that you could self-isolate and actually not develop symptoms at any point. As soon as you develop those symptoms, if that were to be the case, then you should get on the government portal and get yourself a test as soon as you can.
Yes, thank you. Great. A question from I think it was
sorry, I just realised exactly the same message has come up from the council's other team, so I'm very glad it was the same.
The same one. Got a question from Louisa regarding youth. What's the provision for children, in particular youth clubs. So youth clubs are closing as part of this, but you're allowed. We are doing more. We're allowed to do more than we were. So for sort of special, I believe one-to-one care is allowed, and support groups are allowed. It's also worth saying that support groups in other areas, like drug and alcohol support, are still allowed. Mental health support is allowed up to, I believe it's 15 people. So hopefully that answers your question, and we'll just scroll down to try and get some more questions from you. Thank you. So Kim's asked a question in terms of, sorry Nicola, for us cutting across you. Kim's asked a question: will we be able to visit nursing home residents during lockdown? Kim, really, sorry, it's not a positive answer, but no, people aren't allowed to visit nursing homes in this time. So unfortunately, the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I think it's something that the government are looking at. And obviously, as any further guidance comes out, then we'll make sure that that's updated. I think everybody recognised that was a really great ask of people in the former lockdown, and that in terms of helping people, the residents of homes, that there is some hope that the guidance might be a little more open this time. But it will probably depend on the ability to get mass testing in place. Helen, you're quite right, it is a national government issue, but we can, as council, and we have put ourselves forward as keen and eager that when those opportunities are there to bring that in for our residents.
Brilliant, thank you. Wendy's asked a question, can we explain the decision to keep swing parks open? Just struggling to understand the logic when five-a-side outdoor football is banned. Wendy, so it's more a general comment. You know, we want to keep as many things open as possible in the outside so people can enjoy their outside space. So you know, the legislation that's coming through Parliament today allows us to keep those parks open, and we're happy to be doing that. We don't have any control over whether team sport is allowed to be played. A couple of things I'm aware of in terms of swing parks, you know, they are used by the very, very young children typically, and it's that very young cohort which actually, you know, as in under fives, has the least prevalence of COVID. We also know, you know, outside transmission is significantly less. So outside activity is safer. Also, you know, people need to get outside and use the fresh air and have things to do. This is going to be more challenging as a winter lockdown than as a summer lockdown. So, you know, where we can, you know, be doing things. Lots of other things are closed for children, you know, so anything indoors being closed. So the things we can get them to do outside is a good and strong thing for us to do, we believe. But thank you for the question, Wendy.
And I think as well, we really felt and heard a lot from residents earlier in the year about just how hard it was when parks are closed to children. Mine are slightly beyond that stage, but you will very well know the importance of your child running around outside, coming home tired, sleeping well, makes everybody's life better. So it's always an on-balance decision about what's open and what's not, and I'm not going to come down on one side or other of what the government's decisions are. We are following that rules, but as Drew has said, our presumption is, and our intention is to make it as possible and as welcoming as we can for residents to enjoy the amazing parks, beaches, chines, whatever that we have in this part of the world, and you know where those impact on your sense of well-being. Let's make sure we use them and enjoy them. But back to your point about 50 plus people in a swing park, you know, let's use sense about how we get out there.
Sharon has asked a question around grant support coming for businesses who close but don't have a premise or pay rates and work from home. So Sharon, I'll just reiterate, and actually I can see that Brett's who asked the original question on grants and self-employed people has written again. So Sharon, grants are available for £3,000 and up to £3,000 a month for people who businesses have closed and have a rateable value. For those that don't, we will have a discretionary scheme, so £1.1 billion from government, which is equates to £20 a head. So details of what we're going to be doing with that scheme will be available soon. There is some discretion. The government's called it a discretionary scheme, but we're told where to spend it. We are going to be looking at localised businesses to see how we can make the best use of that money. So Sharon, there will be detail coming soon in terms of that discretionary scheme, and people will be able to apply for it.
Thanks. Callum's made a comment that he's had no support. Callum, I'm really sorry if it was further up, but can I make a general point? If you do need some support, and the council is the place to start, that you either, clearly if you're on Facebook you've probably got access to the internet, in which case go to the council website and look for the Together We Can programme, and this has been our central signposting point since much earlier in the year, but obviously it's refreshed with every iteration, every change to the guidance, and you should find a lot of direction to support there. It's also where our volunteers are coordinated through. If there's particular help you need and you've got no other support from friends or family, or you need some help with food provision, collection of prescriptions, any of that sort of stuff, then call the number. I'm astonished that I've got this far without giving it out. It's 0300 123 7052, and there are people who'll be able to answer your call between 9 and 5. And they will direct you to other services if that's the appropriate way, but they can also link up with volunteers, and they've got a direct route into many other services. So I hope that's a helpful one, but it's being staffed up. There's a lot of work that they're undertaking, but they did a terrific job earlier in the year of linking up volunteers and people with the services they need. And if I could just use this opportunity, please, to thank everybody who did sign up, everybody who's continued and come forward again. And if there's anybody out there, then please volunteer through the Community Action Network and their website.
Yeah, absolutely echo that. It's been an amazing, part of it, how the community's come together, and it's about really, how we can step it up again now and support it. So thank you to all of our volunteer network. Okay, we're over time. I'll just do two quick questions that I've got. We had a question from Chris in terms of gyms. Why aren't gyms open effectively? And that it is actually quite essential to be healthy and use them. Chris, I personally, I have some real sympathy with what you're saying, because it is really important to be people's health and their mental health to be exercising. There is limited transmission in the statistics, but the government have taken it as part of a raft of measures with from the stage guidance in terms of what they need to do. I personally, I was on a call with the Minister Robert Jenrick this week, and I asked the question whether gyms related to schools could even be open if they're next to schools, because we know quite a lot of our schools rely on the services there. But the answer clearly has come back that they really want it to be. They've kept a lot of things open, so some stuff has to close to make the impact, and unfortunately gyms are one of them. So just encourage people to get whatever outside exercise they can, and have real sympathy with your question, Chris. The last question, hopefully fitting in terms of the time of year, is from Lawrence in terms of remembrance. So what we're actually asking people to do this year is to do a remembrance on your doorstep. So at 11 o'clock on Sunday, and across the country, people will be taking their silence on their doorstep. So really encourage people to do that. Limited remembrance services are available, to happen, but they're going to massively reduced in number, and then the public are asked to please not attend. So to be clear, it's not the right time to be having mass gatherings. So we need to pay our respects in a different way this year. And that is hopefully going to be taken up by loads of people, and really positively be on your doorstep to do that. Okay, we're a few minutes over, so I'll close there. Please keep questions coming in. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time. There's multiple ways of contacting the council through Facebook, our other customer services. So please engage with us. We're going to get through all the questions that have been unanswered here and come back and give answers to people. But thank you very much, Nicola, for your time and your help. And
for your questions.
Yeah, thank you for your questions, and we just wish everybody well and hope people stay safe. Thank you very much.
Bye.